And our word of the day for today on this Wednesday in the octave of Easter, this Wednesday, April the 3rd, our word for today is stay. Stay, our word for today, and here to talk about it is Deacon Dan Brahier. Good morning, Deacon Dan.
Good morning, Dave. Good morning, Ron.
Good morning.
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter to you, brother.
Thank you. Don't you just love the octave of Easter?
Amen.
It's like Groundhog Day. Every morning you wake up, morning prayer, the antiphons, the psalms are exactly the same from Liturgy of the Hours. You know, that box of Peeps is still just calling for you to pop a few more of those in the next day.
That's good. Box of Peeps.
Yeah, it's just a great week, and something that I always look forward to because it really, truly does feel like Easter every day. We've been fasting for 46 days, and you finally get a chance to be able to just enjoy the season. Mm-hmm. And so today, I think the word stay really captures both of the first reading and the gospel. What I want to get us to think about for a minute is just to go back in time a few weeks and to connect three recent gospel stories. So the second Sunday of Lent, which was only a few weeks ago, we heard the story of the Transfiguration. And Peter, James, and John are at the top of the mountain, and they're experiencing Jesus and Elijah and Moses in all their glory. And what happens there? Peter wants to build a tent so that they can stay at the top of the mountain. He wants to experience that. It is so beautiful that he doesn't want to leave it. And then you fast forward to Palm Sunday, and we hear the first time that the Passion is read. And Jesus takes those same three men, Peter, James, and John, into the garden. And when he takes them into the garden, he goes to pray. And what does he say to them? He asks them, stay with me and pray. And, of course, they fall asleep, but Jesus pleads with them, stay awake and be present to him. It's a story that I always use with our students at the university when we have Eucharistic adoration. That was the first holy hour. Peter, James, and John are called to stay with Jesus for an hour and pray, and that's what we ask them to do when we have adoration. And so today, in the gospel reading, the two men meet Jesus, and they find out that he realized who he is when he breaks the bread. And what do they say to Jesus? They say, stay with us. And that's really one of the most beautiful stories in the Bible. Told in most detail here by Luke, who's describing what happens after the resurrection, as Dave talked about earlier. And we actually hear the second part of this story, by the way, of the continuation of the story of Emmaus on the third Sunday of Easter, just a week and a half from now on the weekend. So it's a beautiful story, but in all of these cases, the dot connector between the Transfiguration, the agony in the garden, and the road to Emmaus is about staying. Jesus, the stories remind us that Jesus wants us to stay with him, and at the same time, the apostles on the mountain and the men on the way to Emmaus long to stay with Jesus. So it goes both ways. He wants us in his presence, and we respond by asking him to be with us. And it's sort of this feeling that if we truly feel the presence of God in our lives, we're going to want to continue to be in that presence, and we're going to ask him to stay with us. There's some history on this. There's some foreshadowing in the Old Testament. If you go back into the first book of Samuel, there's a man named Abiathar who escapes from Saul, who was trying to murder him, and he ends up in David's presence. And David says to him, stay with me. Do not be afraid. Whoever seeks your life will seek my life also. You are under my protection. So it's kind of David reaching out to him saying, stay with me and you'll be protected. And that echo is what we hear in John's Gospel, chapter 15, because in that chapter, Jesus uses the word remain or the word stay multiple times. So when Jesus is talking about the vine and the branches, he says, whoever does not stay with me and will be thrown out like a branch and will wither. People will come and throw them into a fire, and they will be burned. So that same message as we're hearing in Samuel, stay with me, and you're going to be okay. And so we notice in that first reading from Acts what happens when the apostles actually stay with him. through the power of Jesus, Peter heals the crippled man. And Peter says, I don't have silver or gold, but what I do have I give you. And notice he says, in the name of Jesus Christ the Nazarene, I am staying with him, and I have the power to help you through him to rise and walk. So really, to stay with Jesus means to believe in him, to keep our faith, and to do what we do in his name for his glory. And of course, the best way to do that as Catholics is to live a sacramental life that includes the Eucharist and reconciliation as keys to stay connected with Christ.
Beautiful.
My goodness, Deacon Dan, that's beautiful. And I didn't put it together with that story from Samuel. That's so fantastic. Thank you, Deacon Dan.
You're welcome. Have a great week.
Happy Easter.